This movie's pretty thick, and it's a thick with a Thicc. Thick boy! Incredibles 2 is the sequel to the first Incredibles from God knows when. It was early 2000s. I'm just guessing at this point by good old Brad Bird. So to start off, basically, The Incredibles was this 3D animated movie by Brad Bird, who had done The Iron Giant beforehand, and it was a massive success. It was huge. It was way more popular than anything else Brad Bird had ever done. And for my opinion on The Incredibles, I love it. You slap Brad Bird's name on anything, I'll go and watch it, and I'll probably like it. So, yeah. And The Incredibles is probably my top 3 of Brad Bird's films, so there you go. But yeah, for being an animated superhero film, it was a lot of fun. I love the family dynamic. I love seeing how the powers kind of work off of each other. And I think the storyline is actually very interesting and kind of this interesting commentary on superheroes in general. So that leads into 14 years later, I believe, for Incredibles 2. The long-awaited sequel that Brad Bird said he would never do until the script was perfect. Well, is it? The Incredibles 2, oh man, it's so good. It's so good. Like, you're gonna hear a lot of people be like, but it's a sequel. It's not nearly as good as the first one. And I'm gonna be like, shut up and just have fun. Why don't you guys have fun? What if the 2 was out of the title? Then you guys would have way more fun with it. No, but in all honesty, I think The Incredibles 2 is either on par with the first one, or it's even slightly better than the first one, I think. This movie, I think it has everything. Great action, great animation, beautiful scenery, and I think the story is still as compelling as the first one, even though it is almost the same, but kind of with this slight deviant in it that I think is actually really interesting. See, with the first one, it's about what if everybody was super, then nobody would be. It's Syndrome's main line, and that's kind of the idea that he has. But in this one, it's we've grown weak because there are so many supers. And I think that's just fascinating to think about, and I also think that Screenslaver, while the twist I think is very obvious for anybody watching, I think it's still a really cool, compelling villain. I also think the fight scenes with Screenslaver very early on in the movie are really intriguing, and also cause people seizures, so that's good, right? I also think one of the good parts about this movie is that it also focuses on Helen a lot, which is good because it's like the first one was Bob and now it's Helen this time, and I think that's a really good idea because it's fun to see her in the spotlight, and then Bob was in the spotlight of the first one. And so you really get a feel of how both of them kind of interact on their own in their solo lives, and it's really, really good. I also think the stuff with Bob is actually really, really entertaining. I love seeing him try to handle taking care of his kids and taking care of Jack. Speaking of that, I think Jack has one of the most funniest, just most energetic scenes in this entire movie, where simplest plotline, he fights a raccoon. And there you go. It was basically just a Tom and Jerry skit at that point, and it was incredible. You get it? The Incredibles. But one of the other things I said was the animation. And whenever you take a first look at it, you would think, oh, okay, it looks kind of the same. But then you actually start watching it, and it's like the angles are much more like sharper. The animation is much more smoother. And for some reason, every single scene is at happy hour is at golden hour for some reason, which is at sunset or sunrise. It gives this whole movie this kind of like golden look to it, which I really, really enjoy, actually. I also think that the action scenes are as great as the first one, because the first one I think relied a lot on just one super, and so this one you got to see multiple superpowers, so it relied more on a lot more clever action scenes, and I think it was really good. As I said earlier, I think the twists and turns in this movie are not surprising, but I wouldn't really expect that from this movie, because as soon as you see certain characters, you're like, yeah, that's the bad guy right there. Yep, nailed it. But it didn't really bother me that much, I guess, because it never, the story never relied on it being too much of a mystery. It kind of was more of a subplot mystery. It was just more of, we need to go and beat this person. But if it was more of like, we need to figure out who this person is, then I think it would have been more of a detriment to the movie. Overall, The Incredibles, I think, is the perfect sequel, I think. It's up there with stuff like Kung Fu Panda 2 and How to Train Your Dragon 2 of, it's the perfect animated sequel that you need. And I just love it so much. So I would give it 5 out of 5 stars. It's incredible. Get it! And remember, stay classy.